This is the Practical Homeopathy Podcast, episode number 116.
Joette Calabrese here, folks. I'm happy that you've joined me for my podcast today. You're in for a treat. From my virtual classroom, I'm privileged to see how homeopathy is transforming lives all over the globe. Their successes inspire me. They're glorious and powerful, and I can't keep their triumphs a secret. I want you to hear the excitement my students experience too, so you can be inspired by the unique stories. So with the help from Kate, my reporter, I bring you a podcast series I call Moms with Moxie. Sometimes we even interview dads with Audacity or teens with Tenacity. See how regular mothers and others, average folks who love healing those around them, have gone from freaking to fabulous by simply applying what they've learned using what I call practical homeopathy.
Hi, this is Kate, and I want to welcome you to the Practical Homeopathy Podcast. I have a lot of moms with Moxie with me today, and I'm so excited to hear their stories. I haven't had much of a chance to get to know these ladies, but I do know one of them pretty well. We've gotten to know each other over the past year. And so I'm very excited to hear what you all have been doing with your group. You've been meeting together now for a while, studying homeopathy together and kind of doing life, because I understand you met through a homeschool group. So you've known each other for quite a while and you're on a journey together. And I would love for the listeners to hear your stories and how you guys interact, how your study group works, and what you guys do. So I want to welcome you to the podcast. And I want to first introduce my friend, Beth. She's here and she's going to tell us a little bit more about the group and introduce you to these lovely ladies. Beth.
Hi, Kate. Thanks so much. We're all very excited to be here. So I'm here with 5 of my good friends, and we meet about once a week, and we just love homeopathy. And it started with one of our homeschool moms mentioning it in our group and telling us, this is really cool. And we were like, oh, well, we've got essential oils. We've got all these other things. And she sent us to Joette's website, and we've all just fallen in love with it. We've had so much success, and just being together once a week and talking about things and supporting each other through text messages has been amazing.
I know that you guys all met, like you said, through a homeschool group, and then Susie's enthusiasm was contagious. So that's awesome. Actually, there's 2 Susies on the podcast today. So that's going to be a little interesting. We have Susie with a Y and Susie with an I. And It's Susie with a Y that got you guys all fired up about homeopathy. I love that you said, oh, we have our essential oils, or, we're fine. We have all these other natural modalities. And I think you said when we were talking earlier, Beth, that it's like, once you find homeopathy, you're like, that's it. I mean, that is what you've been looking for all this time, right? Is that how you all felt?
Yes, absolutely.
So can you just introduce us to these ladies, and maybe y'all could share a little bit about where you're from and your story or your family? We would love to get to know you.
Okay, so I'll start with Susie with the Y, our enthusiast. So Susie is still a homeschool mom. A couple of us are alumni, but she's still doing homeschooling, and she has a background in working in business and got into hospice, and really loves to help people that are have different issues, and homeopathy just fits her really well with helping people to be better. So anyway, Susie.
Thanks, Beth. And hi, Kate. It's great to finally meet you. I've been listening to your voice for years, and it's great to finally meet you.
Oh, put a face with a name, right?
Yeah. So I've been homeschooling 2 boys for the past 10 years now, and our homeschool group has gotten pretty close, and we share in each other's lives, so we know when our kids are sick or whatever. So we've been sharing health tips for a long time. So I feel like mine's been a journey, like Beth said. I started out with essential oils, and then I dabbled in colloidal silver. And then a friend of mine sent me an article from Joette regarding allergies, because she knew my son suffered from debilitating allergies, respiratory, skin, asthma, resulting in asthma and hospital visits. So I had just really dove into the website and started learning. The Carl has asthma was very helpful. I was an itchy little girl. Some of the articles that Joette had put out, and I started listening to podcast after podcast. And my family didn't know what happened to me because I kind of disappeared mentally from them for a while because I just couldn't get enough of the information I was being fed. And it made so much sense. And I was finding results pretty immediately, with the itchy nose and the sneezing. And it took me a little longer to clear some of the asthma issues. I wound up taking the allergic course so that I could dive in a little deeper and get to the chronic issues, having a little more confidence. But certainly the website and the blog is a great starting point to jump in and start testing and using. And I've just loved it ever since. And so in our group, I started sharing that passion with Beth, who I knew her daughter had some health issues, and she started looking into it. And just all the other moms started to kind of jump on board, and some of them really caught the bug.
So the next person I'd like to introduce is Debbie, because without Debbie, we wouldn't have this group, because Debbie was learning from the website and from Susie and from us talking. And she's like, Beth, you got to start a group. You got to start a group. So she's the one who talked me into getting the group started, and has been involved ever since. We've been meeting like 2 years now. So Debbie.
Hi, my name is Debbie, and I'm a wife and a mom of two, a son and a daughter, and I have a stepson. I'm a homeschool mom alumni. Both my kids are going to go to school this year. One's a senior and one's going to be a sophomore. And I was introduced to homeopathy through Susie when my son had a major head trauma. That's what got me into homeopathy. And then I've seen the results of her and her son and one of the other girls that had a lot of allergies, and also with Beth. And that's what got me started.
Thank you, Debbie.
You're welcome.
Next, how about we go to Susie with an I? Susie is our newest member. She joined us with the last class we did. We've done Gateway 1, Gateway 2, and Allergic, and she joined us for Allergic. And she had been in looking at Joette stuff and learning things, but I think the group really kind of solidified it for her. But we're really glad that Susie's here.
Yeah, thanks, Beth. I'm so glad to be here. I'm also a homeschool mom. I'm still in the midst of it. I have a 5-year-old all the way up to a 15-year-old. But I've been doing homeopathy through Joette's site for about 3 years, and I've been really happy to be able to throw out a lot of drugs out of my home to be able to take care of my family. But this last year, I finally agreed and just was dragging my feet time-wise to join a group with them. And from there, it just exploded. And I've been able to go into uprooting some long-term things. And it's just been a blessing to my family. And my confidence has just soared with homeopathy.
Thank you, Susie. Next, we're going to go to Carlin. Carlin wasn't part of our original homeschool group, but she's been my friend for a very long time. And we homeschooled our daughters and sons together. So Carlin's seen some really great success also, and is a good center for us in our group. She gets us back on track sometimes when we start going off. Anyways, go ahead, Carlin.
Wow, I appreciate that introduction. That was sweet of you. I have 2 college-age kids, and my husband and I have been married 29 years, but I am very new to homeopathy. I probably missed some of the sweet spot for helping my kids through childhood illnesses. We did do the regular route, the allopathic route, but I've had a few little successes with insomnia for my husband and general upset stomach. So I am definitely still on the upward part of the learning curve, trying to learn as I go. And this group has been so helpful to me as a newbie.
Thank you, Carlin. And last but not least, of course, Birgit.
Hello, everybody. My name is Birgit. I know these beautiful ladies, most of them through homeschooling. And it was Susie who got me interested in homeopathy about 2 years ago. But I got really serious about it through Beth and our beautiful group. I'm a mother for 3 children. I have a 15-year-old daughter and then 11-year-old twins. And homeopathy has helped us so much with our allergies. We've had a lot of success with rashes and eczemas, and homeopathy has given so much hope because we struggle a lot with various allergies and stomach pains and all this, and homeopathy has been godsend to us.
Yeah, and I'd like to add that Brigitte's daughter did the Cool Kids class with me this year, and it was awesome. Emma was great. She did a beautiful little presentation at the end. So they're all getting involved.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing a little bit about yourself and your families. And I think what's really interesting about this group is y'all meet on Zoom, yet you live near each other. So groups can really look differently. I know a lot of them that are far apart and they meet on Zoom, but I find it interesting that you guys are local, but it's just easier, I would assume, right, for you guys to meet on Zoom. Do you fit it in better that way, or tell me why you meet on Zoom as opposed to in person?
Yeah, I would say that, our families are still coming in the room and, there's still noise and things are going on. But if we do it Zoom, we're much more likely to meet, where if we have to leave and go somewhere and try to find a central location, it just became more complicated. And this way, it's no big deal if our kids run in the room and start screaming. So I think it's
kind of neat, Beth. It's neat because Beth prepares slideshows and she can put them up on the screen and we're all sharing and seeing the same information and we don't have to crowd around. And it's really, the technology's really just helped us not skip meetings as much as we may have if we were, having to travel 30 minutes or so to go meet with each other.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right. So let's hear a little bit about your individual success stories with homeopathy. I know you all have your own stories to share with the listeners. And so maybe, Beth, can we start with you and you tell us a little bit about how you've used homeopathy over the years?
Yeah, I think in homeopathy now, like anytime I'm out somewhere and I see something, I'll think of something like, someone's on a tube and out in the lake and I see them and I think, oh, that kid's going to need arnica because his head, and I just kind of think that way now because there've been so many amazing success stories. But one of the biggest ones for me is my own, where I have 2 big dogs and they were wrestling and they slammed into the side of my leg and tore the ligament on the side of my leg. And there's really not a lot to do for that. And it's very painful. And I went to a couple doctors just to make sure nothing was broken. And it was amazing that in 2 months that was healed. And then I just haven't had any problems at all. Like, it just still amazes me. As you get older, you kind of feel the things that happened in the past. And I don't feel that one at all. So that was a big one for me. Another one is a friend's son who really has problems with dairy. Every time he would have dairy, he'd have to run to the bathroom. And in just a few weeks of helping him, he was able to eat dairy and he's been fine. And he can eat as much dairy as he wants now, which is amazing. And his mom was just really blown away with that.
I'm going to stop you right there for a second, Beth. I'm sure everyone wants to know, what did you use for your ligament injury?
So for the torn ligament, I used Ruta and Arnica together. It's a Banerjee protocol, I believe. And then I later added a little bit of Symphytum, and it only took about 2 months. There was another one where a man couldn't catch his breath. And I went in and I looked in the blog. It's Where There's Smoke, There's Fire. And it talks about carbo-veg. I don't remember exactly what was happening with him at the time, but I just remember he couldn't catch his breath. And I did go in and I found that blog. So that helped. There's an older man who has nosebleed issues. He's on blood thinners and several other reasons. And so I got out the first aid chart that Joette has, and I only had the remedies, that I carry in my purse. And in the first aid chart, they recommend ferrum phos. And so I gave it to him only twice and it stopped. And he couldn't believe it. Like he can't usually get it to stop. He's gone to the hospital because he can't get his nose to stop. So that was a really big one. So Susie, do you want to share some of the successes you've had?
Sure, I'm happy to. That's what's great about this group is that the people in this group actually care. Sometimes out in the world, some people don't even really, they're just looking at me strange. But sure, one of my favorites is my dad. He got real sick and he had to go to the hospital and he was catheterized. And when he came home from the hospital, he couldn't urinate after being catheterized. It was, I don't know what that is, swelling or whatever, but I had just remembered reading an article on the blog called S's for Staph aureus, and they mentioned that remedy almost never fails for that reason. So I had Staph aureus 30 in my red box kit, and I gave him a dose of that, waited 30 minutes and gave him another, and then he just was able to go to the bathroom, and it was never an issue. So that was one of those that was really cool because he's elderly and I've seen people have to go back to the hospital for those issues, so that's one of my favorites. Another one is a neighbor friend of mine that they had just moved here and their daughter suffered from chronic ear infections and strep throat. And they hadn't gotten a doctor yet here. And we've been under the pandemic and getting to the doctor was a little issue. So she called me at 10:30 at night and I just said, I'll come over. I have a few things if you want to try it. So she said, sure. So also from the blog, I was able to pull something up on chronic strep throat and keep our Sulf 30, I think mixed with belladonna for the pain was what was recommended. So I ran that down to her. And, 2 hours later, she's texting me at midnight saying, I can't even believe it. The fever's down, she's sleeping, there's no coughing. And they'd never even heard of homeopathy before. So to see a tiny little sugar pill do what it did, they were astounded. So, she's now interested in learning more. And so those are two of my real favorites. Another one was a friend of mine who was living with me at the time, suffered from hepatitis. And I had gone with her to her doctor and her doctor said, well, there is this new drug that's out, $75,000 a dose or whatever. And, both our eyes were just opened. And I just mentioned, I'm a student of homeopathy. And do you think that I have enough time to try my methods before you might consider being aggressive with whatever therapy you have? And so he kind of shrugged me off and laughed at me a little bit because he'd never really heard of anything besides his methods of helping. But he did give me the chance to say that there was time to try something. So after researching on the blog, I found an article called Liver Vitamins Are Like Jewels and Homeopathic Remedies for Liver Disease. And on there, they suggested using chelidonium, which I did for several months. And when she got retested, there was a slight improvement on her numbers, but she still was testing positive for hepatitis. So once I was a student of Joette and had taken a class, I'm able to get on to the Students of Joette Facebook group and started asking questions and researching the blog and found a Banerjee protocol by adding Thuja 30 into that protocol with the chelidonium. And after 5 or 6 months, she was retested and she tests negative now for hepatitis, where she never thought she would be rid of this disease.
That's incredible. Wow. Wow.
Debbie, why don't you talk about Zach's head injury? It just so happened, though, with Debbie, I was just learning and I always took around a little kit with me. So I always had, the red box kit and all this stuff. So when her son was bleeding all over, I just ran and grabbed my bag and I handed Debbie the bottle of arnica and just said, dose this every 15 minutes until, everything starts to improve. So, and then I'll let you take it from there, Deb.
So we were at a jump place and my son was on an obstacle course and the metal bar came and smacked him square in the middle of his forehead. And he had like an inch laceration. He was like bleeding all over. So I had asked her son, no, I said, go get your mom quick. Because I knew she was full of everything. So she gave me some arnica and she gave me a little butterfly stitch. We stitched it up and she gave me the arnica and then we went home, obviously, after that. And I was in a bad car accident and I didn't really want to take him to the emergency room and have all that trauma. So we decided to stop on the way home at Whole Foods and I got colloidal silver gel and vitamin E. And then we continued to do the arnica and his head did not swell at all. And he had fallen one time at a babysitter and he had like a big knot because he hit his head from a different injury because I didn't know about arnica. But then after Susie gave me the arnica this time, we didn't have to get stitches or anything. We just did use the butterfly and the other colloidal silver gel and vitamin E. There was like a little bit of infection here and there, which maybe I could have done Hep-Ar Sulf, knowing about it now, but it all cleared up and there's like practically no scar whatsoever there. So that's what started me in the homeopathy. And then I have like so many other stories in addition to that one.
Oh, tell us a few more.
My husband he's a painter, so he'd get carpal tunnel quite a bit. And his wrist would be like super knotted up from carpal tunnel for like 6 weeks and he'd be in excruciating pain. So I decided to look it up on Joette's site, the carpal tunnel. And there's one on there for repetition is good till it causes painful hands. And on there, it talks about using Symphytum 200 and Rhus-Tox 30. So we tried that. And every time he comes home, he's like, when he comes home and complains about it, he's like, give me that stuff. So it has like worked miracles because he has not had any of the other issues since then, since you start as soon as it starts to irritate you. But other times he literally would be like in excruciating pain for like 6 weeks or more. And then recently my dog had a spinal cord injury. She had a fibrocartilaginous embolism. And she was having a really difficult time walking, and they call it knuckling. They're like their paws slide and would get like all scraped up when she walked. So I called or text Beth, I think I text her, and asked her about what to do for this injury. And within 48 hours, she made like such a turnaround. So Beth helped me out and we used Symphytum and Hypericum. And she's like running all over the place. She still has a little bit of a problem. So she went on vacation with my husband and we stopped it for a short period of time. And I think I'm going to start it again because like when she sits, her leg will slide out a little bit, but before she could barely walk. And within like 2 days of giving her the protocol, I had taken her to the vet and stuff and he didn't know what to do. I looked it up online and like the dogs couldn't walk for like a year or so, depending on their injury. She didn't have a substantial injury, but she did have a pretty bad one. So it worked for that also.
The neat thing about Zach's injury was Debbie was sharing photos the very next day of, the wound. I had, the before and the after picture of the wound in just one day, which was miraculous because it's gushing and open and bleeding on day one. And on day two, it had already fused together, the wound on his head. And, when we were sending those pictures around our little group, people were just oohing and ahhing. They couldn't even believe that the injury they saw the day before had already started closing and there was no swelling or bruising or anything. It was, Debbie took great care of her son that day and it was really encouraging.
And that my son also had a friend that had like a major injury to the head also that I gave them the protocol. And it was like probably 5 or 6 o'clock at night. He went to the hospital. He had been diagnosed with a concussion. That was a Saturday night, I believe. It might've been Saturday or Sunday night. And so my son said to me, he's like, Mom, did you give him the protocol? And I'm like, no, because I had told her something for her husband's Achilles tendon, but it didn't seem like she used it. But he's like, well, Mom, maybe you should tell her. And I'm like, all right, I'll tell her one more time. And after that, I'm not going to like force things on her. So she went out to the store that night at it was like 8:40. So she runs to the store and gets the protocols. And by the next, before he went to bed, he had big black and blue also. And he said by the next morning, the black and blue was gone. They went to the hospital on Tuesday to confirm about his concussion and it was gone by using just the protocols for concussion. So that was another one in addition to Zach's.
Brigitte also had I have some photos that like I just love with her daughter with the eczema.
That was quite the sight. Her eczema behind her knees got so bad. I had to take her to the doctor, and the doctor prescribed steroid creams, which I refused to use. And with the help of Beth, she found me a good protocol from Joette's site, which we did. It was arsenicum 200C 3 times a day, and also Heber Sulf 200 every other day. And I think within a few days it cleared up. It was incredible. She was so uncomfortable. It was super itchy, but it was also so inflamed. It was bloody from scratching. And she's also on Bovista and Calcarb, actually 200 on every other day for general allergies. And if I could also share the story of my rash, I broke out in horrific rash all over my body, my arms, my legs, my stomach, my back, and the doctors suspected pityriasis rosea, which is also called Christmas tree, but they did biopsy and it didn't get confirmed. They said it's just the dermatitis. And I was really devastated because I'm a realtor, so I have to meet with my clients, and I was covered with this rash. And I looked at Joette's Facebook videos, and she was mentioning in one of her videos that she had bad rash, and the regular rash protocol, which is antimonium crudum 6C with arsenicum album 200C, didn't work for her. And she mentioned that she tried sulfur 200. And I couldn't believe I just took 1 or 2 doses and it completely cleared up. And I was suffering with it for a couple of months. And even after the first dose, it was like it calmed. I immediately felt how it's calmed everything down. It was amazing. But I think the most miraculous story of all is how I ran into my neighbor, and she mentioned that she has herniated disc and she's going to have a surgery. And I said, if you're open to homeopathy, I can look up on Joette's site some protocols. And she was very eager to find out about it. And I found 2 great articles. One was Symphydon for pain, and the other one was SNAP. And I found protocols. It was for bulging and herniated disc was Symphydon 200 mixed with Calcfas 3X twice a day. And then also it was Hypericum 200C twice a day for pain. And she was taking these for 3 weeks before she saw any results. But then within 1 week, the pain was completely gone and she was able to cancel the surgery. And she's now such a strong believer in homeopathy. She's taking courses and helping her whole family. And it just, it's been amazing to see her getting into it through her own experience.
That's so great. I love how Susie helped you, and then now you're able to help other people.
That's right.
And I also feel like it's important to point out that the protocols sometimes take a while. We can be impatient, and it's great how you took the sulfur and within, you said, I think a day or 2, you really noticed drastic results, but it doesn't always happen that way. And so thank you for sharing that story about how, she took that protocol for the herniated disc, and after, I think you said 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Yeah. So
I would have given up, but she kept taking it exactly on the same time every day, morning and afternoon at the same time. That was the key. It looks like, because she stayed with it.
Yeah.
Until
it's wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you.
So Susie with an I, would you like to share something? I love your cat story. That's all I'm like, I have it in my head.
So I can definitely attest to the waiting long. It's great to see some instant results, but I've also uprooted some things that I never thought possible. I was able to do a lot of like short-term things with my family when I was just pouring over Joette's site, and it was such a blessing. But finally, when I started this study group and I took Joette's allergy class, I started to gain the confidence, and I'm like, all right, I'm going after the allergies in my family. And there were quite a few. And cats were like number one, especially for my husband. He goes into someone's home, and I mean, really, he's not able to breathe for like 2 days later. It can be scary. So for 2 months at least, we follow the protocols on Joette's allergy class. And one day we hadn't tested it out, or we hadn't been thinking about it, but we were very, well, methodically taking it. And we visited a family member who had 2 indoor cats, and we were there for 4 hours. And of course, we're careful not to touch our faces and such like that. But as we're driving home, I turned to my husband and I'm like, you're not dying. Like, you're okay. And we're able to breathe. And normally we drive home from that home and our heads are just pounding, and he's like barely in and out of consciousness, honestly. And I'll even drive home because he can't drive from the cats. And I was like, it just felt like a miracle. It felt so miraculous. And it was such a blessing. I'm like, it's homeopathy. Like, there was nothing else going on. Like, there was no, like, I think we can easily forget about little things, or, well, I didn't touch my eyes as much this time, or I'm like, there is no doubt in my mind that it was the homeopathy, and we were just blown away.
I like how you said that sometimes we forget about things when we are healing. We forget how bad it is, or how bad the condition was. And we talk about that in the Gateway 1 study guide, that's a phenomena that you tend to forget the pain of the past.
Yeah, I think for 10 minutes we talked back and forth each other. Yeah, I used to feel like this, and I would feel like this on the way home. And we just, the more we talked about it, the more we felt more and more confident in how we were feeling. We weren't perfect, and that's okay, but we came tremendous way.
I think, I could add a little bit to that with some stuff like that. My son got braces, and the pain from his braces was just awful every couple of months when he'd get his braces tightened. And I think Joette has an article called Teeth Worthy Tips. And so she gives a few remedies listed that could help with certain, orthodontic procedure pain and whatever. So I, put a few remedies in a water bottle for him, because he didn't even want to put anything in his mouth, but water seemed to really work for him. And where he couldn't eat for a week before that, I was giving him soft foods for a week to feed him. When I just started giving him, I think I mixed belladonna or alternated belladonna with arnica. And within that night, he was already eating real food. And, he doesn't want to say that it was the homeopathy either, but I mean, I know, because I'm the mom, and I'm the one who has to deal with a non-eating compliant, feels like a child who is being very difficult. So that was amazing. And I know a lot of people who are taking lots of ibuprofen and acetaminophen for issues like that, because tooth pain is just unbearable a lot of times. So it's great to have that protocol in my arsenal for myself. And that's what I've learned. And I have another story recently with success for my younger son, who suffers from motion sickness, especially on boats. He gets very seasick. So we were traveling a few weeks ago from Virginia to South Florida by boat. And within a few hours of rocking back and forth, he was starting to complain. He vomited a few times. And I used Arsenicum album 30, alternated with Nux Vomica 30. And it probably only took 2 doses of both before he was fine and running all over the boat again. So, that was a real plus, because we had no choice but to stay on the water all the way home. So he could have been miserable, but, homeopathy to the rescue again in that circumstance.
I think it might be my favorite when my kids, instead of saying, "Oh, where's the ibuprofen?" or "What do you just say? Where's the arnica, Mom? Where is it?" That's like a huge plus in my book.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And now all the other kids that come around too.
And it's great now that our kids are sharing the information with other children. And with the Cool Kids class, I'm hoping to get my son in it as well in the next few months. But, it's neat to pass this information down to our children and to have them have access, way in advance of what we had, and to get their bodies healthy and more able to withstand illness, in the future.
I think that has to be one of the biggest joys as a mother, I've heard my daughter say that recently too, the same thing, that she says, Mom, I helped my friend with this condition and I helped my friend with this condition with homeopathy. And she says she's never been this well with this certain condition. And now it's totally changed and she's doing better. And isn't that so exciting to see the next generation, that we can give them an advantage over, I don't know about you guys and your whole story, but it was many years before I came to natural medicine and specifically homeopathy. And so I'm just so thankful that we can teach this to our children and they have a better start in their life with this medicine.
Absolutely. It eliminates so much fear and anxiety for me, knowing that I have so much at my hands with the knowledge of how to use it now, and to not feel helpless in so many situations. I'm not going to say it's perfect in every situation, but it 90% of the time, I almost have an answer for everything that comes up.
Mm-hmm.
My little boy, one day he comes home, he's swollen. He's got this big watery edematous eye, full of water. I don't know where it came from. And I had learned from the blog that Apis mellifica 30C is great for watery swellings. And so, where other friends or other times in my life, I would have definitely rushed to the hospital or to the doctor because it was so severe looking, and then the next day it moved to his lips and then other parts of his body. But each time I met the swelling with Apis, and it just disappeared within a few hours. And now they don't happen anymore, so I don't ever know what it was. I never had it diagnosed or anything, but it doesn't happen anymore. And I know, Beth, you have a story about Apis and your throat closing.
Yeah, that's true. We went out to dinner and I forgot about that one, Susie. Thank you. And we had like a big, like all these hors d'oeuvres that everybody ordered. It was a whole bunch of us out to dinner. And I just had a little bit of everything. So I don't know what caused an anaphylactic reaction, but I had an anaphylactic reaction. And I remembered from Joette talking about her dad, where she would give him the remedies and they would sit in front of the emergency room, right? So I get in the car and I get out my remedies and I take Apis and aconite, I think it was, and I drive over to the emergency room and I sat outside the emergency room. It wasn't very far away. I probably shouldn't have been driving, but I did. And I sat there and after about 15 minutes, it went away. And I was like, I have been in the hospital for anaphylactic reactions before, and the medications, they put me out for 3 weeks easily, that they're so strong. And for me not to have to go through that and then just to be able to go back and go on with life, that was amazing. That was very early on when I was learning about Joette. And that was because one of our other homeschool moms, her daughter had allergies, and we saw amazing changes with her. And so she had actually taught me how to do those remedies. Yeah, that's right.
And Beth, you had another story like that. I think you were at a bee farm or you were somewhere where an elderly lady got stung by a bee or something happened, and you also gave her Apis. Am I correct?
Oh, yeah. The master gardener. Yes, she was. So I did the Master Gardener program, and part of it is you have to go help with the gardens. And there was a woman there who had terrible, terrible allergies. I didn't know at the time, but she was bending over to weed, and everybody else had sprayed bug spray except for her. And I had actually taken Ledum before we started weeding, and I think Apis too, just so I was trying not to get stung. But anyway, she bent over and all these mosquitoes just came right at her because she was the only one that hadn't done anything. And she just started swelling up. I mean, just swelling and swelling. And I was like, oh, I have something I can give you if you're willing to try it. She was telling me she's on all different kinds of medications for allergies. And I gave her Apis and it was amazing. She came back. She's like, what is this stuff? How do I get this? This was just amazing. And I only gave it to her like twice, but she had allergies her whole life. That was a really amazing one. And then everybody wanted to know because everybody was a gardener and they've all been stung by different things. And so, yeah, that was a good one. What about you, Carlin?
I don't have super amazing stories because, I am newer to this. However, I will say that I have really enjoyed being able to feed off of what these other ladies have said in the groups as we've gone through and as we were doing and processing these study groups together. It's been such a blessing to hear the mentoring that's going on for me. Though I am probably as old as anybody here, I'm got kind of that biblical younger woman thing going, and they've got the experienced woman going, and I'm trying to learn from them. It's been really good. And in a sense, so I'll go ahead and tell you what I have had experience with, and that is my husband does sometimes suffer from insomnia. And so he's been helped by the Coffea cruda 30C. That's been very good. And additionally, various times we'll feel ill to our stomachs. And the Nux vomica 30C has also been a help to us. I wanted to encourage anyone who may be thinking that, should I join a group? Would it work for me to join a group? This kind of thing, that I hope that you can, because it really, really has been excellent for us to, be able to bounce things off of each other. And for me, who doesn't know very much, to just try to soak in as much as I can. So probably whether you're very experienced or not as experienced, it's a wonderful thing. So best wishes to you on that.
I agree with
go ahead. Sorry, Susie.
I agree with the merits of joining a group. I did it on my own for about 2 or 3 years, and it was great. And Joette's site, fantastic. You can glean so much, and I did, but to gain the confidence in the amount of time of joining a group is just, you can't compare. And for me, it was just, I was listening to all these. I'm like, wow, how do they remember all this stuff? This is amazing. And then I was listening, we were doing the allergy class together. So I was listening to Joette during the week. And then I was talking about it later in the week. And that's, that repetition. And I was like, oh, I'm starting to remember it. Oh, apis, I've heard that before. Oh, okay. All these different words that I, in my own mind have been saying quietly by myself didn't stick as much as when you're hearing and you're you're laughing and you're hearing these wonderful stories. And there's nothing like joining a group. It's fantastic.
Debbie, what are your thoughts about joining the study group?
I really enjoyed our group. I knew Beth and Susie were a lot more knowledgeable. Susie with a Y was a lot more knowledgeable. Susie with an I might have too been a lot more knowledgeable than I am. So anytime we have questions, we have like a group chat that we can ask questions, and they're always so sweet and very helpful. And we all get together we get together on Zoom to do our group study together. And like I said, it's great because if you don't have someone to ask, you're kind of like, what do I do? Or when you get nervous, you're not sure what to do. Or sometimes, like, one of the other things I've learned is writing things down. Carlin reminded me the other day about like my index cards. I've read that somewhere on Joette's site about writing them down on the index cards because I don't remember everything. But it's been very helpful for the group to get together and help each other and encourage each other along the way. So you don't think you're alone, because like my daughter thinks it's crazy here and there, and she doesn't think it works, but then she does. She'll ask me for things a little bit here and there, but she doesn't want to admit it. So you have people that are supporting you through it all, which makes it much easier.
So I've heard you guys talking a lot about the benefits of a study group. And I know when we talked earlier, you said that's a point that you really want to make to the listeners, is how important this study group has been to you. Is there anything that you want to add to that?
I think for me, this is Susie with a Y. It's empowerment, giving another mom a tool in her arsenal to help care for her family by herself, and then watching the success, and then watching, how the knowledge of homeopathy is branching out into our communities is just so exciting for me. And it's great to spur each other on to greater works. I guess that's how I would put it for myself. I can't talk about homeopathy enough.
Yeah. And accountability, like we all were like kind of looking at the information, reading the blogs and stuff. But when you start getting into the classes and you can get distracted really easily. So us doing the classes together keeps us accountable and working through it. And then, as questions come up in the group, I'll go figure out what the answer is and bring it back, or they will. And so it helps us to continue to learn even outside of what's in the class.
I love that my confidence just grew tremendously. And not only that, but when we are in the middle of talking and someone says, oh, we use this for sunscreen. I'm like, wait, what? I've never thought to even think about that, and for me, that's what it was helpful, where you would for me, it was just coming up with new ways to help my family and to have, less chemicals or whatever it be, but to heal them has been great for my family.
I have to say, for me, the group is everything, because I don't know how many times Susie shared the protocols with me before for my kids' allergies. And I never really tried it until I joined the group. I did the Gateway 1, Gateway 2. It gave me understanding of homeopathy, first of all, because before I had the basic understanding, I really didn't take it seriously. And meeting every week, it keeps me on track. It keeps me focused. I live and breathe homeopathy when I'm eating every week. So it's been super helpful. Thank you.
And another thing that it does is sometimes I'm impatient to wait for the protocol to work. That, when we call each other and, well, how long has it been? Well, you got to give it at least 2 months. And it's, oh, yeah. Okay. And so there's accountability there, because I have a tendency to want to jump to the next. And, there's some patience in homeopathy too.
I want to piggyback off that with Susie. I had plantar fasciitis several years ago, whatever, and I used the homeopathy and it went away. And then I've gotten it back and it's just won't go away. And the same thing, I'm thinking, okay, I was looking up online, Joette stuff, and people are like, okay, you got to wait, takes up to 2 months. I'm like, oh, okay. So I restarted it again and hoping it's going to go away this time and stick to at least the 2 months, 2 to 3 months.
The other thing for us is we actually met once in person, and that was really nice too, to get together and meet up and just connect even more. Like connecting once a week is great, and then seeing each other, and we've all gotten closer, and the whole group dynamic has just been great for, I think, all of us. I think I can speak for all of us. And we miss it. We haven't been doing it this summer as much because of the just summertime, and we're ready to get started again. So we've decided that starting next, we're going to do the Good Gut, Bad Gut class, and we're looking forward to that, and start a kids class for some of the kids that want to do it, the Cool Kids class, which was so much fun. And we just love getting together and talking about homeopathy, and it's just a blessing to be able to help everyone that we know, live a better life.
And honestly, it's been a great distraction from just the current affairs of the world, to continue to learn and get that intellectual stimulation, and to just continue to grow is what's helping me a lot to get through, some of these more trying times that we're in.
Well, I can tell you that after meeting you and doing this podcast together, these women are so precious. They're just so sweet and genuine. And I have loved getting to know you. I feel like I'm already part of your group. I want to join in.
Join in anytime.
Anytime, Kate.
So I just encourage you, if you're listening, to find a group. There's Joette's Find Your Study Group page. Connect with some people, whether they're local or on Zoom far away, and you'll really be glad that you connected with other people. Thank you all for being here and sharing your stories. I know it's sometimes not easy, so I appreciate you encouraging the listeners. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kate.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kate.
As I hope you know by now, on my blog, podcasts, and Facebook Live, I offer as many protocols for simple conditions as I can, for free, without affiliates or advertising. But let me be clear, when it comes to more complex conditions, it's key that you learn how to use these medicines properly. I want you to be well trained. So I save discussions of the more involved methods for my courses, in which I walk students through each method with step-by-step training. In these podcasts, I focus on those students of mine who have already tunneled in and learned how to take care of themselves, family and friends and pets, and even livestock using homeopathic medicine. Many of these students began their education by participating in one of my Gateway to Homeopathy study groups. And now, after taking one or more of my courses, they're well trained to use my specific brand of homeopathy. I hope listening to this podcast has inspired you to follow in their footsteps. With the proper training, you too can nurture and protect the health of your family and loved ones with practical homeopathy.
You just listened to a podcast from practicalhomeopathy.com, where nationally certified homeopath, public speaker, and author Joette Calabrese shares her passion for helping families stay strong through homeopathy. Joette's podcasts are available on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Google Play, Blueberry, Pandora, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Thank you for listening to this podcast with Joette Calabrese. To learn more and find out if homeopathy is a good fit for your health strategy, visit practicalhomeopathy.com.